The Wilson Tower stood 40 stories high in the heart of downtown, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. From my private elevator, I could see my father's company logo on the 30th floor, Wilson & Associates, where he'd spent 30 years building his accounting empire. Soon he'd learn that his landlord was his youngest daughter. Ms. Olivia, my assistant Andrew's voice came through my earpiece. The ownership transfer notices are ready for distribution. Perfect timing, I smiled, watching the elevator numbers climb. Make sure Wilson & Associates gets theirs first. 5 years ago, I'd sat in my father's office on that 30th floor, trying to explain my vision for a new kind of real estate investment firm. Commercial properties are changing, Dad, I'd insisted, spreading my business plan across his desk. Traditional offices are dying. Companies want flexible spaces, integrated technology, sustainable design. Enough. He hadn't even looked at my carefully prepared projections. This isn't a game, Olivia. Real estate takes serious capital, serious connections. You're 25, barely out of business school. I've already secured initial funding. $2 million from your trust fund, he scoffed. That's not even enough for a down payment on a decent property. My older sister Jennifer, Dad's star accountant, had chosen that moment to walk in. Oh, is Liv sharing her cute little real estate dreams again? I'd gritted my teeth. Jennifer had been Dad's golden child since she joined the firm straight out of college, content to follow his traditional path to success. They're not dreams, I'd said. I've already identified several undervalued properties that. Know your place, Olivia. Dad had cut me off. You have a good position here at the firm. Focus on your accounting career. Leave real estate to the big players. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. The big players are stuck in old thinking. They don't see how the market is evolving. Enough. He'd slammed his hand on the desk. I didn't build this firm by chasing fantasies. I built it through hard work, traditional values, solid accounting principles. Times are changing, Dad. If you just look at the numbers. I said enough. His voice had turned cold. Either focus on your accounting career here, or find another job. But don't expect any support for these ridiculous ambitions. Jennifer had smirked from the doorway. Listen to Dad, Liv. Not everyone is meant to be a real estate mogul. I'd gathered my papers slowly, deliberately. You're right. Not everyone is. That was the last day I worked at Wilson & Associates. I'd walked out of the building that evening with nothing but my business plan and a determination to prove them wrong. My trust fund might not have been serious capital by my father's standards, but it was enough to start. The first year was brutal. I worked out of a tiny office in a rundown building, studying market trends, building relationships, looking for the one opportunity that would prove my vision. I found it in an abandoned warehouse district. While traditional developers saw decay, I saw potential. The city was expanding in that direction, tech companies were looking for unique spaces, and property values were artificially low. I poured every penny of my trust fund into buying 2 buildings, then spent months convincing investors to back my renovation plans. My vision wasn't just about updating old buildings. It was about creating modern, flexible workspaces that could adapt to changing business needs. Dad's voice echoed in my head during the sleepless nights. Know your place. Well, my place was going to be at the top. The first building opened 18 months after I'd left Wilson & Associates. We were fully leased before construction was even complete. Tech startups loved the open floor plans, integrated technology, and environmentally sustainable design. The second building filled up just as quickly. Suddenly, investors who'd hesitated were calling non-stop. My company, Phoenix Properties, became known for seeing potential where others saw only decay. I never took my father's calls during those early days. Let him hear about my success from others. Let him read about it in the business papers that started calling me the future of commercial real estate. 3 years after walking out of his office, I was managing over $500 million in properties. But I had my eyes on a bigger prize. The Wilson Tower had been the crown jewel of downtown since I was a child. My father's firm had been a tenant since before I was born. The building's owners were old-school real estate investors, the kind who didn't see how the market was changing. They didn't notice when Phoenix Properties started buying their debt through shell companies. They didn't realize when we began acquiring neighboring properties. They didn't see us coming until it was too late. The acquisition was finalized yesterday. Today, every tenant in the Wilson Tower would receive notice of their new ownership, including Wilson and Associates. I stepped out of the elevator onto the top floor. My floor now. The previous owner's office had already been cleaned out, making way for Phoenix Properties' new headquarters. The notices are being delivered now, Andrew informed me, handing me a coffee. Would you like to watch the security feed from the 30th floor? I smiled, settling into my new chair. Pull it up. On the monitor, I watched the courier enter Wilson and Associates' reception area. Jennifer was there talking to the receptionist. She took the envelope, frowning slightly at the Phoenix Properties logo. I zoomed in as she opened it, watching her face change from confusion to shock. She ran into our father's office, the notice clutched in her hand. Should I take their call when it comes? Andrew asked. No need, I replied. I'll be paying them a visit personally. The Wilson Tower was just the beginning. I had plans to transform the entire block into a modern business hub. Exactly the kind of project Dad had dismissed as a fantasy. Your sister is trying to reach you on your personal cell, Andrew noted. I glanced at my phone. 3 missed calls from Jennifer already. Let her wait, I said, turning back to the window. I think it's time they learned their place. Mine? It was right here in the office they said I'd never have, running the company they said would never succeed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's becoming their landlord. I waited exactly 1 hour before taking the elevator down to the 30th floor. Let them stew, let them realize exactly what the ownership change meant. The Wilson and Associates logo looked dated now. All serif fonts and traditional design. It would have to go. The whole floor would need to be modernized to meet Phoenix Properties standards. Jennifer was waiting at reception, her face flushed with anger. You can't just walk in here. Actually, I can, I interrupted smoothly. I own the building. This is a sick joke, she sputtered. Phoenix Properties is a major development firm. They're not some little startup. Phoenix Properties is my company, I said, enjoying the way her eyes widened. Has been since I walked out of here 5 years ago. Where's Dad? In his office, but... I walked past her, through the familiar maze of cubicles where I'd once been just another junior accountant. The staff watched me pass, whispering among themselves. They'd all heard about my success, but none of them had connected Phoenix Properties to the ambitious daughter their boss had dismissed. Dad was standing at his window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the city skyline. My skyline now. Hello, Dad. He turned slowly. He looked older than I remembered, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes. I suppose you're here to gloat. No, I settled into the chair across from his desk. I'm here to discuss the changes that will be happening to the building. Changes. I pulled out my tablet, pulling up the renovation plans. The Wilson Tower is being rebranded as Phoenix Plaza. We're upgrading all systems to smart building technology, installing solar panels, creating collaborative spaces on each floor. This is our office, he protested. We've been here for 30 years. And you can stay, I smiled. If you're willing to adapt. All tenants are being offered new leases, but they'll need to comply with our modern standards. Jennifer burst in, waving the lease agreement. These rates are ridiculous. And the renovation requirements are non-negotiable, I finished for her. Welcome to the future of commercial real estate. The one you said I didn't understand. Dad sank into his chair. Why are you doing this? Because you told me to know my place. I met his eyes directly. And my place is changing the very industry you said I couldn't handle. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. You have 30 days to decide if you want to sign the new lease. If not, there's a waiting list of tech companies eager for prime downtown space. You'd evict your own family? Jennifer's voice cracked. Family. I laughed. Was it family when you mocked my ambitions? When Dad said I wasn't capable of real estate development? When you both told me to stay in my place? Silence filled the room. The world is changing, I continued. Companies either adapt or they die. Wilson and Associates can either join the future or stay stuck in the past. Your choice. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and the building-wide renovation starts next month. I think I'll begin with the 30th floor. The next few weeks were interesting. Jennifer called daily, alternating between threats and pleading. Dad's lawyers tried to find loopholes in the ownership transfer. None of it mattered. Phoenix Properties ownership was ironclad. Other tenants quickly signed the new leases, eager to be part of the building's transformation. Modern companies understood the value of our vision. Only Wilson and Associates held out. 3 days before the deadline, Dad finally called personally. The renovation costs alone would eat up our profits for the year, he said without preamble. That's the price of progress, I replied. The same progress you said wasn't possible. Olivia. He sighed. I was wrong. About you, about the industry, about everything. But this is my life's work. And this is mine, I said firmly. The question is, can your life's work adapt to change? The next day, Wilson and Associates signed the new lease. The renovation was comprehensive. We stripped the 30th floor down to concrete and steel, replacing everything with sustainable materials, smart technology, and flexible workspace design. Dad's corner office became a collaborative area. Jennifer's private suite turned into a green space with living walls. The traditional cubicle farm transformed into an open plan that encouraged innovation. 6 months later, I invited them both to tour the completed floor. I don't even recognize it, Jennifer whispered, staring at the modern space that had replaced their traditional office. That's the point, I said. The future doesn't look like the past. Dad ran his hand along a reclaimed wood wall. You've built something remarkable. No, I corrected him. I've built something I always knew was possible. You just couldn't see it. The Wilson Tower's transformation made headlines in the real estate world. Traditional office tower becomes innovation hub, the articles proclaimed. Photos of our sustainable design and modern amenities appeared in architecture magazines. 1 year after taking ownership, I sat in my top floor office, looking down at the city. The building's new solar glass facade gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of progress visible for miles. Andrew knocked on my door. Your father's here to see you. I considered sending him away. But success is its own kind of closure. Send him in. Dad looked uncomfortable in my sleek modern office. So different from his traditional wood-paneled sanctuary 30 floors below. The firm's profits are up 40% since the renovation, he said quietly. Turns out younger clients prefer modern spaces. Who you? I smiled. I did. 5 years ago. He nodded slowly. I should have listened. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Can we? He hesitated. Can we start over? I considered his request. That depends. Can you accept that your daughter not only found her place but redefined the entire industry? I'm learning to, he said. It's hard to argue with success, especially when you're paying rent to it. I laughed despite myself. Dinner next week? We can discuss phase 2 of the renovation. There's a phase 2? Dad, I smiled. There's always a phase 2. That's what ambition means. He left looking thoughtful. Jennifer still refuses to visit my office, but her department has the highest productivity since the renovation. Sometimes progress speaks for itself. The Wilson Tower, now Phoenix Plaza, stands as a testament to what's possible when you ignore those who tell you to know your place. Its transformation from traditional office building to modern innovation hub mirrors my own journey from dismissed daughter to industry leader. And my family? They're still figuring out their place in the building I own. But at least now they understand, ambition isn't about knowing your place. It's about creating it. Last month, Dad finally retired. His successor at Wilson and Associates? A young woman with ambitious plans to modernize the firm's entire business model. When she interviewed, she told them she'd been inspired by the story of how Phoenix Plaza was transformed. Sometimes, she said, you have to ignore those who tell you to know your place. Dad called to tell me about her hiring. Reminded me of someone, he said. Thought you'd appreciate that. I do. Because sometimes the best legacy isn't just the buildings we own, but the barriers we break for those who come after us. In my place? It's exactly where I made it. At the top of the building they said I'd never have.